Oh, all right, everybody. We are back talking about the NFL draft, which takes place in a whopping, I think this is going to post on Wednesday, so it is tomorrow night, but I don't know. We might post this on Tuesday, so maybe it's in 2 days. It doesn't matter. It's being recorded Monday night. And we have everyone's favorite guest, friend of the show, Dustin Baker of VikesNow, joining in to give us we're just going to talk about the draft. I mean, do you have insight that you want to share? Like, do you have like behind the curtain stuff, or do you just have some strong opinions? I think there's two different types of draft analysts.
So I started to come up in this space 3 years ago, and as soon as I started to have some version of contact, Spielman and Zimmer got fired. So it's a little trickier to reestablish some of the behind the scenes stuff. I did ask today about these, I guess, 2 or 3 gigantic trades up the board, and I was told that those are smoke and mirrors. But the source didn't sound too confident in telling me that. Just kind of like, oh yeah, it sounds like smoke and mirrors. But that kind of makes sense, that the Vikings have become the first team ever to trade that far up a board for a quarterback. I think when the Rams did in 2016, it was pick number 16 to number 1 or something like that. So while it could happen and I would get excited about it and hope that it's not like the Gobert or Herschel Walker trade, I just don't quite see them having the oomph to go up 21 or 20 spots on the board. But otherwise, I do have strong opinions. So, yes.
I love the Gobert Timberwolves shade. A night after they win to avoid elimination, in my opinion, which is probably unpopular, they're just making it a gentleman's sweep for that series, because I do think Denver's going to beat them tomorrow night. But I do like the Gobert shade. But I agree with I like that. Would you go ahead?
I felt when that trade was announced, was it July? And I love basketball, and LeBron is my guy. So I've been a Cavs fan, a Heat fan, a Lakers fan. If you want to call that bandwagon, so be it. But I do like the Timberwolves. It's not like I'm just trashing them. But when I saw that trade, from the start until now, I have been on, what on earth are you doing? This guy does not score more than 14 points a night, and he doesn't have the ball in his hands when the game's on the line. So why on earth? Like, I would have been skeptical if they traded that package for Durant. So I couldn't believe it at the time. And then people started to say, well, give it time. This is a big splash. Maybe it'll work. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm being an asshole. And then every game that I watch, I'm like, how did they do that? But
it definitely. We're gonna have to start I'm trying to think of an equivalent for load the box. Maybe it's I don't know, stack the paint or something, or flood the paint, something like that. We'll have to talk about basketball on that show, because I think we could both give some spicy takes on it. But I do like that you said that the guy you talked to, within the organization or wherever, said that was all smoke and mirrors. That sounds very much like we have no intention of trading Stephon Diggs or trading Halvin at this time. The classic Rick Spielman line that he would always give 2 weeks before, dishing out a Vikings wide receiver. So I don't know. I think it's going to be, I'm excited. I'm excited for the draft, and I'm hoping that if that news does break, it breaks tonight, while we're doing this. I mean, not while we're doing the show, but I hope it breaks not draft night, because I want to have that anticipation going into it. But it does give me a reason to be very tuned in to the top 5 picks, whereas usually I feel like I watch it, but I usually watch it with buddies, and there's some conversations happening and some those drinks flowing and things of that nature. But let's get into actually talking about what we think about trading up that high, and instead of talking, let's push that back. Let's put that on the back burner, low heat for a little bit. I want to talk about a guy that it seems day by day his odds of coming and becoming a Minnesota Viking are growing, and that's Hendon Hooker. It seems like everybody in the league is saying the Vikings love Hendon Hooker. The Vikings kind of seem to love Hendon Hooker from what I've seen, and I think I saw a quote today that there was an anonymous source from within an organization that said the Vikings are just enamored with Hendon Hooker. They made it sound like they're the guy. If the Vikings were picking at 1, they would take Hendon Hooker. What do you think of Hendon Hooker, and do you have anything that you want to say? Have the Vikings leaked anything out there publicly to you or anything? Oh, I especially want to get your opinion on him, specifically at 23.
No, in terms of any draft leaks, I think to anybody, there is a zilch, and that's kind of the way that it should be, unless you're posturing at the very top of the draft to get a better trade, like kind of like the Bears did.
Yeah.
So I'm on record, in print and on video, that I am not afraid. I am not a fan of Hooker in round one. So here's what I was doing about 6 weeks ago. I was trying to warm up to him as a third round pick, trying to understand that. All right, so we're going to get rid of Cousins and we're going to get a guy who will be 26 by the time he's ready to play. And he's, by the way, he's got a bad knee that we hope is better. And he likes to run the football. He ran the ball about 10 to 13 times per game at Tennessee. And usually those guys peter out by about age 29 or 30. So we're going to have this little precious window of 27, 28, and 29 and hope that the Vikings finally get to be the lucky franchise. All of those things have really weighed on me. So when Daniel Jeremiah had that mock draft 1 month ago, that just all of a sudden Hendon Hooker to the Vikings, number 23, that started everything. Then everybody started picking it, and so what happened was I have come to the point where if we just get him in round 2 or round 3, then I will feel fine about it because I don't want them to use a first round pick. The precedent for old quarterbacks is horrendous in the NFL down the line. And I really, in my heart of hearts, don't believe that the snake-bitten Vikings franchise is going to be the team to finally get lucky with it. But let's say we're hanging out here next time we talk, and Hooker's the heir apparent. I will have to find ways to get behind it and get excited about it. But right now, I would much prefer that come after round 1 because there will always be a stigma that you spent your first pick on this guy. You knew he was old. You knew his knee was bad. You knew that he liked to run the ball. What are we doing? But if you can get him anywhere outside of round 1, I think that stigma diminishes, and nobody really cares if it's a third round flop. It'd be just like Kellen Mond.
Yeah, so I'm in a very similar boat, and me and Will actually discussed this on last week's show, and I kind of brought up how, it's what I love about Kwesi as a GM is he kind of has that stocks, New York Stock Exchange background, whatever you want to call it, and so I look at Hooker like a stock in that in the first round it's way too expensive. It just you can't you can't do it. But in the second round, I could see it. If the Vikings trade back, even if they traded back to 31 or 32, with the Dolphins forfeiting their pick, it's kind of funky. Yeah. But if they trade back to the last pick in the draft and they take him there, but they still get extra top 100 capital, I could be like, oh, okay, it almost feels like Teddy Bridgewater in a sense of we're going to take him just so we get the 5th-year option, when he's 30 years old. But it's not like you're trading up and giving up tons of draft capital. You're actually receiving draft capital and you're getting, your guy, if you want to say that. But I don't know. How do you think the Vikings, and I'm not I'm not saying you have any information that other people don't, but do you? My opinion on the Hooker thing is not that the Vikings are leaking to people, we love Hendon Hooker, we're going to take Hendon Hooker. It is that the Vikings didn't extend Cousins through 2025 or whatever, or 2024, 2025, whatever the years would be. And so now draft analysts say, well, they need a quarterback for the future, and Hendon Hooker kind of fits in that late first round window. Let's just pair them together, and other media outlets have run with it. That's my personal conspiracy theory, is that they're just kind of being paired together, by circumstance, not by actual we think they're going to take them. Does that make sense?
Yes, that is number 1 with a bullet. That is the reason. This is the first time as Vikings fans or writers that we have been hanging out any time on the calendar, and Cousins doesn't have 2 years to his name beyond where he's currently standing. So yes, I think it took about the whole body politic of the NFL about a week and a half, 2 weeks to realize, wait, they didn't extend Cousins, because that's when all the Hooker smoke started. And yeah, it feels like it was a domino effect or a chain reaction that, well, this Hooker guy looks like he's going to be pretty good. It feels like a Vikings thing to do, to just pick an old-ass quarterback and hope for the best, so let's put him there. One thing that makes me really raise my eyebrows is there are a couple guys in our space that I think are more or less fans or Twitter personalities that have accurately predicted to draft to me in the last 3 years. And there's one gentleman who accurately predicted Jefferson and Gladney in 2020, and he thinks the pick is going to be Hooker. And when I reached out to him for our little predictions project, he said Hooker, and I tried to bump him off it, and he's like, no, he's like, I think that they think he's the guy. And he didn't have any inside intel or anything. This was just the way that he also said it's been hard to get a drop on Kwesi because he's so new. But yeah, I've taken a long time to warm up to the fact that Kirk Cousins may not get it done. His 4,000 passing yards and 30 touchdowns, they'll work somewhere else, but they won't work with the Vikings. I've come a long way to be like, all right, well, I guess it's not going to work. We're not going to build the team like the 49ers. And so I kind of thought when we're going to be done with that with such a productive guy, then swing for the fences. Go get the 21-year-old who's mobile. But we're looking at, we're probably going to get the 25-year-old who's got a bad knee. And why are we doing that? That's where I'm at, and that's why I'm so cynical about Hooker in round 1.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement that he kind of seems like good value in the second or third round, but it's too rich. It's just too rich. But I mean, there's even mock drafts showing like the Titans taking Hooker in like the teens, and I'm like, okay, let them make that mistake of taking him at like I think they draft at like 13 or something. Let them make that mistake. Let's not make it in Minnesota. Let's talk about getting the 21-year-old mobile guy. You know, the toolsy guy, Josh Allen, Cam Newton, because they're now mock drafts. There's some people who now there's been pulled out that it just came out this morning on Monday that there's, I think it was loud rumblings was the phrasing that Barstool Sports used. That's why I saw the report. I don't know where it's originally from, but
Draft Network is where
was it the Draft Network? Okay,
Jamie Eisner of the Draft Network. Yep,
I appreciate you. Loud rumblings that the Vikings are trying to move into like the top 5. I can't remember if it's number 3 with Arizona that they're trying to move up, and they're trying to get Will Levis, I think, was the guy, and I'm like, ooh, what? Will Levis? Like, what? Like, that seems steep. That seems like, I don't know, Levis tanking some interviews, Levis he gives me Josh Rosen vibes. But like a different style of play, but personality-wise, he gives me Josh Rosen vibe. What's your opinion on moving from 23? Let's not even say just to like 2 or 3. Let's just say top 5. I mean, like, what do you think of that for any player, let alone Will Levis?
Well, I'm gonna have a strange speech on this. If the pick all the way up the board to the Cardinals spot at 3 or the Texans at 2 was for C.J. Stroud at, what is he, 20, 21, 22, and to me it seems like he does have some mobility when he wants to, although he's kind of like Teddy, who just doesn't really run because he likes to throw it. I would be fine and dandy with taking your big swing on Stroud, because that would be the guy I consider the safest, even beyond Bryce Young and his 5'10"ishness. But when you look at it, there's these big 4, and if you exclude Hooker, it is Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. And I swear to God that not all 4 of them are going to be good. There's going to be one that's probably really good, a second one that's kind of like Prescott. You're like, yeah, this guy's good. A third who's like, meh, not going to cut it. And a fourth who's going to be a joke. And I keep coming back as Levis is the one that's probably going to be the joke. Like, because of his immaturity, it seems. And he's also not very young. He's 24. And so if they were going to go all the way up to 3 for Levis, I would really be like, oh, man, we're digging our graves here. If it was for Stroud, to me, that would be a different ball game. But here is why my speech is weird. It's if they want to do that, they've identified their guy, not just a guy. They love Levis, they love Stroud, and they send 3 firsts to whoever to get him. And if that guy, so if that works and the guy turns into Josh Allen, nobody will care one iota that they spent 3 draft picks on him. If he sucks, it's all gonna suck anyhow. Kevin O'Connell's gonna be fired. The trade's gonna be laughed at. And by the time we've got over the hump of realizing that guy stinks, we're going to have our draft picks again, and we'll be starting brand new afresh. So it sounds kind of like, what is Dustin saying here? But I really think that if they want to make their splash and get their quarterback, go ahead and do it. Even if it's Levis, we trust you to have your guy here. And in fact, my most preferred outcome in this draft is that whoever it is between Kwesi and Kevin, whichever guy they like, just go get him now. Because it is very rare that you can just take for granted a guy who throws 30 touchdowns like Cousins just trot him onto the field because we know he's on his way out. Maybe we'll get lucky and go to the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, you have a guy just waiting to take over, like the Chiefs did in 2017. That is so rare, especially for the Vikings, that my most preferred outcome is no matter how they do it, they go find their guy, and then we do it like the Chiefs, or we do it like the Packers, and we let them marinate for 1 year.
So I have to ask your opinion on him because you brought up Levis, you brought up Stroud, you even mentioned Bryce Young. Anthony Richardson. What if the pick's for Anthony Richardson? I know you said you would like Stroud, maybe not like Stroud, but you would feel comfortable with Stroud. Levis, you have your concerns about. What do you think of Richardson as, the ultimate tools guy?
I would love Stroud. That one would really get me. Yeah, because Kevin O'Connell has always talked about his own little litmus test and its accuracy. If the guy can't be accurate, then he doesn't really sounds like he doesn't really want him. So that leads me to believe that Richardson probably isn't the guy. But I would rather have Richardson because of that upside. But just like my whole little hooker speech about too old and bad knee, no quarterback has ever been that inaccurate come out of round 1 and turn out to be good. The last 3 that were worse than Richardson were Ryan Leaf, Kyle Bowler, and Jake Locker. And that's not a list you want to be a part of. So I'm really trying to understand, and I've listened to people talk about it. If Richardson can't be accurate in college, why do we think that he's going to sit behind some guy for a year and then suddenly be really good against players that are even better? I struggle with that. But at the end of the day, whether it's Richardson or Levis, I think we have the best head coaching hire to develop that quarterback, to put the emphasis on that relationship, unlike Zimmer, who was kind of like, yeah, just give me a guy who doesn't throw interceptions, we'll be fine. I think that O'Connell will truly nurture this relationship, and if it's Richardson, I would be certainly more excited about it than Levis, because I have paranoia about Levis that he's going to be the dude of the big 4 that doesn't quite work out.
Yeah, well, in agreement. Almost across the board. I also have my concerns about Richardson. I think we disagree on Richardson a little bit because I do think that there is this, I made a comment last week on the show that I'm not tooting my own horn, but I thought it was a really good take. And I made this point about how Levis is a quarterback who has accuracy issues. He's a quarterback that isn't playing it well, in my opinion. He regressed in 2022. That's not good when you're coming out for the draft. And in 2021, you put up crazy numbers. 2022, you don't look as good. And now you've got scouts saying, oh, well, look at his 2021 tape. Well, why are we not looking at the most recent tape? I want to see the most recent tape because that's what he's probably going to come out as. Richardson, to me, is just a football player who is... Yeah. He needs to be taught how to play quarterback. And, I really wish he would have stayed at Florida for another season to learn how to play quarterback a little bit better and then come into the NFL. But I think that if he lands with the right coaching staff, and I think as Vikings fans, we have to believe that Kevin O'Connell is the correct coach right now. I don't know why. I'm not trying to stir the pot or say other rumblings about Kevin O'Connell being a bad coach. He just went 13-4, won the division, and made the playoffs in his first season. He's a good, I'm happy with Kevin O'Connell, but we don't know if he can develop quarterbacks or not. So I think we have to assume that he can. And so Richardson just seems like he has such high upside. He's a fantasy. He really is. He is just a fantasy. He's a dream quarterback in terms of his physical traits and tools. And if you can just hone in his ability to throw the football, I think he could be really good. But that's a huge if for, the quarterback position. Do you think I want to get your take quickly on this, and then we'll kind of move into some non-quarterback talk. Do you think it's more likely that the Vikings trade back or trade into just the top 10? I'm just going to say top 10 trade up or just a trade back.
Oh, well, I don't know how to say this. I would, if I gambled, it would be a no-brainer to bet on the trade back.
Yeah.
I really don't expect them to trade up, especially in the top 3. I think, I don't even think they know. If you get to the number 10th pick and Richardson's still there, they might be like going, holy shit, how did this happen? We got to go get him. And it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I really don't think that Richardson's going to get that far, let alone the Peter King mock draft today that had him going all the way to 23, which would be the dream scenario.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to spend anything in terms of trade capital. But no, I do love the idea that we're able to talk about the next guy at quarterback. But when that's all said and done, I firmly believe that the moment Kwesi traded for TJ Hawkinson, he told himself, oh, it only cost me like a couple pick swaps. I can get that back before lunchtime. So I think that he knew in that moment he would just trade out of whatever pick that he had and, kind of steam or flip-flop that into top 100 picks, which is supposed to be the sweet spot in this draft. So beyond the shadow of a doubt, I would more so predict a trade back than a trade up.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately the Vikings are kind of in the national media spotlight for like this team that might do this crazy thing, and Vikings fans are like, oh my gosh, we never do crazy stuff. Well, it's going to be us. We're going to move up. We're going to take... No, buddy, it's going to be the same thing it was with Luke Spielman. We're trading back. Well, we're going to get draft capital, and I agree with you. Like, I think it's going to be same old Vikings moves during the draft. But that doesn't mean, like you said, that doesn't mean we can't walk away with the Cousins successor. And it doesn't mean we can't walk away with a really good draft. It just means we're not going to pick at 23 and we're not going to pick in the top 5, which usually playoff teams don't pick in the top 5. That's kind of a rare occurrence. So, all right, let's get off of quarterbacks.
Also remember Richardson is 20 years old right now. How fantastic is that? That is a 5-year difference between Hendon Hooker. I mean, that's a lifetime.
Yep.
In football. So I think that is really cool that you would get the young physical freak who can hang out for a year, and then O'Connell can do the quarterback whisperer. If that happens, I love the fact that he's only 20 years old.
Like I said, man, he is just like, I go to sleep at night and I dream of quarterbacks. And I dream of the Vikings winning a Super Bowl, and it's always the Richardson type. It's always the giant athletic freak who can throw the ball 150 yards, with the flick of the... Like, he's just special, man. He's just special. But let's hop off of quarterbacks really quickly, and we don't have to spend a ton of time here, but obviously we're not going to take 5 or 6 quarterbacks. There's going to be other positions drafted, and I hope that some of them are on the defensive side of the ball. Let's say the Vikings aren't allowed to trade out of the 23 pick. What's your dream scenario in terms of a non-quarterback in that position? I know there's talks of like Smith and Jigba. There's some defensive tackles, some pass rushers that are coming, and especially defensive backs. Who's your guy that doesn't throw the ball?
Sure, if they're not allowed at all to trade back from 23. My endorsement would be Joey Porter if he falls that far. And if he doesn't fall that far, Deonte Banks. I consider their skill sets as 2 sure things, especially with Brian Flores' tutelage. So it's so wild how all of these bloodline defensive backs, whether it's Antoine Winfield, Patrick Surtain, Asante Samuel, Marlon Humphrey, like all of these guys who dad played in the NFL and they're also a cornerback or a safety, they're wonderful. And so I'm going to keep that train going for Joey Porter. That's why I would do the sprint to the podium thing, because in my opinion, the Vikings need cornerbacks. They may not believe it, but I do. And then realistically, if Porter is snatched by somebody like the Commanders, or maybe not even getting past the Steelers, his dad's team, then yeah, Deonte Banks, I think he fits like a glove with what Flores wants to do. So those would be my 2. And I'm also morbidly curious about where Bijan Robinson ends up, because it's really weird that the top 3 football player can just go to any single team in this draft and nobody really cares. They're like, oh yeah, the Bills could get him, Chiefs could get him. Go ahead. That guy's going to be wonderful. And because of the era we live in with running backs, he just feels like gravy.
Yeah, it's crazy to me, and I've been listening to a lot of baseball content lately because it's baseball season, and so there's this guy, and one of his catchphrases are like, "This is analytics have went too far in terms of baseball," and with Bijan Robinson, it's like analytics have gone too far. That kid is a very good football player, and he can do it all. I don't care that he plays a devalued position. He's good at football. He would be a pleasure to have on any team. And yet, if the Vikings took him at 23, I think I would be upset. So maybe I'm a little hypocritical because I'm saying that.
My take, because I don't think that he gets that far to the Vikings, and it probably is a stretch for the analytics general manager to take the anti-analytics thing. What I really want to avoid is Bijan going to the Bears or to the Lions. I don't think he'd go to the Packers regardless. but I don't want him to go to the Lions
That's
to
fair.
just get richer, or the Bears. Yeah, that's probably, if he goes anywhere else, Eagles would suck because they become even more of a powerhouse. But yeah, what I'm kind of doing is just don't go to the Lions or Bears, Mr. Robinson, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair take. Okay, so I'm gonna very quickly just spout some of my draft crushes, and then I'm gonna let you spout some, and then I'll do our stupid plugs and everything, and we'll leave. But I really like Kalijah Cansey. At a Pitt, I'm still high on him. I think he's really good. Joey Porter Jr. is actually a guy that I have on my dream list because, like you said, he's got like the lineage, the bloodline, whatever you want to call it, and so I do think he's going to be a very good defensive back, and the Vikings don't have a lot of those. Jaron Hall out of BYU. If you watch Load the Box, you know that I love BYU quarterbacks, and I think that he is just like a third round pick that's waiting to be pretty good at football. Like I think he's going to be pretty solid. And so I really like him. And then as we start getting into the later rounds, Ivan Pace Jr., I believe is his name, out of Cincinnati. He's a linebacker. He's a little undersized, and a lot of people at like the Senior Bowl were saying he could be like a pass rusher, kind of like a diet Micah Parsons. A big fan of his, and maybe it's some hometown bias because he attended the University of Cincinnati, and me and my wife owe them boatloads of money. But I'm a huge fan of his, and so I would love to see the Vikings select Pace Jr. Whether it be he's probably going to go in like the 5th round, and so he's a guy that I frequently take him in mock drafts, whenever I'm doing them, because I like his skill set. I like, the quick, rangy linebacker who can also get up under defenders and bring a little bit of pass rush. So those are my draft crushes. Do you have anybody that you would like to stand on your soapbox for?
Yeah, I got a handful here. So I'll make is this a good time to make my formal prediction, or should I wait till the end? Or
you know what, you can. I would wait until I would give your draft crushes, and then I would make your official prediction at the end of this take.
Okay, so in terms of my for sure things, Brian Branch, it's kind of unfair to have him as a draft crush because he's probably going to go in the first round, or he will go in the first round. And it would be taboo for Kwesi to take 2 safeties in his first 2 drafts in the first round. But he also plays cornerback along with Banks and Joey Porter. I think Branch is a sure thing based on the way that he tackles, where he came from in Alabama. I think he's going to be good. If the Vikings somehow end up with him, it'll take a lot of salesmanship because we're like, safeties, baby, what are we doing? But I know he's going to be good. Moving down out of round 1, let's see. Nathaniel Dell from Houston. He's speedster. He's small. I think he'll be picked in round, maybe late round 2, 3, or 4. That would be really cool if the Vikings got him, and then he pushed KJ Osborne to the limit this summer. In the running back realm, because there is a chance that a very good chance Dalvin Cook doesn't play for the Vikings, and Kene Nwangu is relegated to kick returner duty. I like Rashawn Johnson, Robinson's backup. He seems like the ultimate team player, and it seems like everybody just kind of forgets about him because it's Bijan mania. I always screw up the last name, and I haven't formally researched how to pronounce it. The Alabama linebacker Henry Tuotu.
I'm not gonna take a shot, but I think it's Toa. But don't hold me to that.
Toa. Yeah, it took me about 1.5 years to get Tua's name down. I think in round 2 or 3, he's going to be a good linebacker. And this is all under the assumption that Jack Campbell and Drew Sanders, Trenton Simpson are probably going to be pretty good too. I don't think I need to call them out. And then once you get towards round 3 or 4 from TCU, the cornerback, if we haven't got one, the Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, I think he has the toolkit to be something that's better than a 3rd or 4th rounder. But my official prediction, and I really agonized and soul searched on this son of a bitch for about a month because I was all over the board. I kind of believed, they're going to trade up and get their quarterback because these guys got a pair. And then I was like, well, I don't know. They had that press conference and didn't sound too excited about it. And then the roster need long-term is cornerback. But then I was like, you know what? They just drafted Booth and Evans. They like those guys. Maybe they're going to be content. And then I wanted a wide receiver because they just said no thanks to DJ Chark and Darius Slayton. So just KJ Osborne and hope for the best. What I ultimately settled on after digging into Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's past is he was reared in the San Francisco 49ers system. And in his 8 drafts there, In rounds 1 and 2, they selected 6 defensive linemen altogether. In San Francisco, the mantra was build the trenches, and I think that's one of the major reasons that it doesn't really matter who they have at quarterback. They're going to be in the playoffs, damn near the Super Bowl. So I believe that Kwesi will build the trenches like he was taught to do, or maybe he taught others to do in San Francisco. And I've settled on a defensive tackle for the first pick after they have traded back. I went with Brian Breesy. A lot of my pals say Maisie Smith from Michigan. You like Kalijah Cansey, so I'll be a little wishy-washy and say a trade back and then a defensive tackle, and I will put a name on it for myself and say Brian Breesy because he really does have that specimen to be outrageously good. It's just that he only played like 25 games in college, so you're taking a little bit of gamble on the resume. So Breesy, I'm locking in as my formal prediction after a trade back.
I'm gonna give a formal prediction, and I'm gonna keep it very brief. I think the Vikings are gonna trade out of the first round completely, and they're gonna trade back like really foul, like to like mid round 2, but they're gonna get like 2 or more. Like they're gonna get a second round pick plus like 2 other like top 100 draft picks. So I don't know what teams qualify in this trade scenario, but I think they're going to make some type, because last year they went from like 13 to 31. They dropped back 18 spots with a division rival. So, like, I don't think they're afraid to move back if they think that they can get value there. I'm going to say that their first draft pick is still going to be a quarterback, and I think it's going to be the guy that I think all Vikings fans unanimously hate, or at least they should. I think, because this team always disappoints me, they're going to take Tanner McKee, my least favorite quarterback prospect in the history of quarterback prospects.
Oh, you mean
sixth.
Kirk?
Yeah, no, Welsh Coke. Like, he is 6'7", he's scrawny as all hell, can't move. When he does move, he moves at a whopping like 0.2 miles per hour. I hate him. I hate him as a prospect, and if they draft him, I won't give him a chance to play. I will go out and I'll be very anti-McKee from day one. But I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to go with kind of the silly, Debbie Downer predictions. That way, whenever they trade up and they get Richardson on Thursday night, we can all celebrate and we can act like we're winning the Super Bowl, even though he won't even play next season. So I think it's going to be a fun draft. We'll be discussing on getting you back on after the draft at some point to discuss it. But
oh, yeah. Can you imagine what we'll have to go through if they get Richardson in any capacity? The very first bad throw from Kirk in week 1 or week 2. Everybody. More than just the anti-Kirk crowd. Kirk's going to have his one bad game. He always has 1.5. And oh boy, the pitchforks will come out so fast.
And also
Richardson's not on the team.
You have to think too. So like, if Hooker gets drafted, he's got a knee injury. He might not even be the backup because he might be on like injured reserve. If it's Richardson, they might do some of the like, Lamar Jackson when Joe Flacco was still there, where it's like he comes in for like 2 plays every game to do something. And knowing our luck, Richardson will look just elite in those 2 plays every week. And so by week 8, there will be people that are like, well, Richardson's got a 78% completion percentage on his 6 passes, and he's got 3 rushing touchdowns because they keep doing sneaks from the one. Like, and so people will try and bend stats because that's what you do. Stats don't matter unless they fit your narrative. Like,
my little speech there, exactly what you're talking about was week 1 of 2021. The Vikings were on the road at the Bengals, so I watched Red Zone that day. And I remember they broke into the 49ers' first drive, and Trey Lance took a handoff, and I think he scored on their first drive. And for my fantasy football brain, and the draft had been in my purview for multiple months, not long ago, I was like, holy shit, they're starting with him right away? I thought this would take months. And that was the only notable thing that he did, probably in his career so far.
Yep.
But I remember thinking very vividly, you're talking about getting him involved in little packages. I was like, holy shit, Lance is already the guy, because I didn't know that Jimmy had the entire drive. So yeah, I could see it, but that would be cool. That you fold Richardson in, and that gets his feet wet a little bit, and then you could really with Kirk's accuracy, Richardson's lack thereof, but then Richardson's build like an edge rusher. Yeah, you can just throw him out there and have him quarterback sneaks like the Eagles and all that. Yeah, it'd be great.
See, and this will be my final say for the night. So make sure you shop Unified and follow the show at LTB Vikings, and make sure you check out VikesNow and VikingsTerritory.com. Dustin, you do amazing work. I'm gonna give you just a little. I'm not gonna clap into my microphone because it always sounds bad, but a little golf clap because you do amazing things, and you're a take artiste, if you will. So we always love having you on, but I do think that we need to understand that if the Vikings do somehow get Richardson and he sucks at quarterback, we can always just make him our tight end. Like there's always that option if we can just Tim Tebow him and we can make him a tight end, and he'll probably be good at that. Because like you said, he's built like an edge rusher, and I love that take. I just love it.
Or we could do the Bo Jackson thing, and we can just have him play edge rusher and quarterback. He could.
Well, he could. He's such a freak athlete, and this is going to be a little bit of pandering to my Minnesota fans because the Vikings are my only Minnesota team. But we could have him play quarterback for the Vikings on Sundays, and then come summertime or springtime, he can go play first base for the Twins. And you got yourself a little bit of a dynamic, and hell, maybe him and Anthony Edwards can go together, and he can play, he can play some power forward. I mean, he can do everything. Why not? Put him in the Olympics. So, all right, Dustin, thank you very much for coming on. We have a Lakers game to go enjoy. And everybody, enjoy the draft. Be safe. A lot of people that like to drink and then drive home because they're stupid. And so, be safe out there. But we'll leave you with a skull, y'all.
All right, Skull, man. Take it easy.
See ya.